Welcome to Alex and Annie, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And we are back today for the September 1st. I had to think about that for a second. September 1st, first on the month bonus episode. This is brought to you by AJL Atelier and Simon Lehmann. Please be sure to stay tuned for the end of the episode because Simon is here and he's going to be coming on to talk to us about top 5 tips for profitability, which as a operator, or doesn't matter what side of the space you're in, profitability for any type of business is the number one thing we should all be concerned about. And Simon is always leading the charge on those discussions. So we're excited for that.
He is hyper-focused on profitability. And I think it's what he says is that's profitability and money is the oxygen that allows the business to breathe and grow. So I'll be interested to see what his tips are, but I know they'll be good.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're excited to see him again. So it has been a busy month. The month of July was super busy. The last time that we recorded, we were just getting into, the heat of summer in both markets that you and I are in. This is prime time, June, July, and August. That's, the big rental seasons for us. But we ended the month on a high note. We got ready to go to DARM and we had some exciting things going on with that. And the Data and Revenue Management Conference that was in Nashville. And it was an excellent show. As always, Amy Highnote always puts on a great show. And this was probably one of the best, I think. And honestly it was a year ago that we were in Charleston, that was the first conference everybody went to post COVID.
Right.
And I feel like since that conference forward, you can just see the level of innovation that has just catapulted since then, or skyrocketed, really, because all the conversations that are being had. And I think that's a big part of course, what all we do in the collaboration part. And it's exciting. It was a great show, and we're excited to see everybody going forward for VRMA in just a couple months.
Yeah. And again, I think, we always joke about starting and ending the year on a high note with Amy. But she just outdoes herself every time. And this was just by far, DARM is one of the best conferences that I've attended for the industry, and it just gets better every time. And so I think what I was really thrilled about for her was that there were no big hiccups. There's no power outages.
That's right. Normally there's always something crazy.
There wasn't anything crazy. And Nashville is just such a wonderful town to go to. It's one of my favorite cities to go to. We were able to sit down and have dinner with a dear friend, Amber, who is, again, one of the biggest reasons
Amber Hurdle.
The reasons we still do this podcast is because of her nudging and cajoling and pushing us to kind of get outside our comfort zone. So great. It was great to see everybody. The content was deep. The content was timely. It was great stuff. You and I hosted a panel on insurance, which was, again, I joked about it being the sexiest thing nobody's talking about, but fairly well attended. It was in the main room. I was sort of shocked, but
there was a lot of smiles. There was a lot of laughter. I would say it was definitely one of the more fun panels. And who would have known insurance could be so sexy or fun?
Who knew it could be fun and there could actually be laughter involved? But I think one of the things that I noticed about that was after the fact, talking with some people that said they didn't know some of the things that were talked about. And I didn't know anything about insurance because I don't deal with it, but it connected some of these people that might not have met otherwise. They wanted to have more conversations.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And one of the interesting conversations that I had there was related to insurance, and it was connecting to vendors, actually, that we were talking about, how we use travel insurance and how that's a revenue source in the business, and was able to connect two vendors that they're going to start doing some business together too. So I think there, probably other vendors don't go to all the panels. They definitely don't, but that's the benefit of having these really collaborative events. And I will say, as far as the type of content that was shared at this event, these are really the great conversations that you want to be part of. And it is different than some of the other events that we go to, that I think this is a type of conference that I left with a full notebook full of notes. So
there was a definite lot of that FOMO, like trying to get to all the sessions. It was hard because they were all of them were good. It was hard. For me, the one thing that was really great was, from a lexicon standpoint, we didn't have a booth. So I was there representing the organization, but not actually have a booth. So I was able to kind of mill around and ended up connecting with someone that I worked with years ago at Expedia, who's now on the vacation rental side, works for a very large management company. And they happen to be kind of entertaining new channel management. And so,
That's right.
so that was an opportunity that I didn't know existed. But again, I think that just speaks to, you build all these relationships and foster them over years, that it all comes full circle.
I think just there's so much to learn at these events too, just talking to other property managers that are similar to us at Condo World, and how they intertwine revenue management and marketing, and how those departments work together, and how to really have, as Simon's going to talk about, a profitable business, you really have to have those two departments working simultaneously and, in step. And just, I learned a lot on that side of things. And one theme that I really liked from one of the panels was the difference between revenue management versus revenue performance. And I think that's really where the industry is now going, that revenue management was a new thing, 5 to 7 years ago for all of us, but now it's we're all doing that, but now the next level is performance, and really taking it to that next level. So if you're a company that has a lot of historical data, that's great. But now how can you be adding in these other tools that are giving you market level demand, and really, telling you what you need to be doing, from a market perspective. So that was exciting. A lot of great conversations there. And we also, one thing that we brought to this show, if anybody follows us on social media, I don't know how you could possibly miss it, but we had our hashtag "We Are Not Airbnb" t-shirts made, and we wore those around the event, and they were a huge hit. And actually, we came up with the idea for that. It was Steve Milo's episode that we aired in July, I believe. That was one of our top performing episodes. No surprise. And one of his quotes was, VRMA, we need, as an industry, we need to do a better job of explaining that we are not Airbnb. We are not Airbnb. And I remember you and I were texting after, and we're like, we should make shirts for that. And like, how can we tie an initiative like that with our podcast to something that we can give back? So we made shirts, and we have them on our website, that the 100% of the proceeds we're going to donate to the VRMA Advocacy Fund. So we want something that we can give back. Not just, I think the podcast and these conversations that we have really opened up a lot of conversations between different organizations. But now we also want to be able to give back in a monetary fashion too. So if you go to alexnannypodcast.com and you go to the store page, you can actually buy a really cute "We Are Not Airbnb" men's or women's t-shirt. So
and I will caution all the ladies out there, the small runs very large.
Well, these are different. These are different than the ones that we wore.
Oh, they are. Oh, I haven't seen the new ones. Okay. So but we would love, it would be super cool if like everyone wore it to Verma. Like that would just be so awesome. That we gave them out to some folks at the show, and people were very excited about it. And actually going back to the panel, we hosted a panel, an OTA panel, and almost all
almost all the guys
they wore the shirt, and some
they
of the
indulged
guys
us. And they styled them too. I mean, their interpretation of how to wear the shirts was hilarious.
I mean, props to Alex Aliato from Wednesday and to Craig from Got to Go. Like, they wore women's shirts and they looked phenomenal, and it was styling, and it was great. And so I think that it resonated with people, and the fact that people can buy them for their entire team and wear them on maybe we have a, like the book direct day that happens. Maybe we have a day where everybody wears the "We Are Not Airbnb" shirts at and that would be great. And it would raise money for the cause. So that's always good.
Absolutely. Yeah. So very supportive of Verma in that efforts, and being on the marketing committee, we are all the way behind them. So hopefully we can keep moving that message forward. But besides DARM, so moving into something that we talked about on the July 1st of the month episode, we have a big announcement now. We are announcing Alex Nanny's list, and officially, and the companies that we have decided to be part of this list. And just to go back to explain a little bit more about what it is. So when Annie and I first came up with the idea for the podcast, it started from Clubhouse, that Annie was hosting these clubhouses where she would bring in people from all different sides of the industry to talk about a topic. And the thing that I loved about those discussions was you were choosing people that weren't necessarily all within the same space. So you'd have a property manager, you'd have a vendor that's maybe on the insurance side, a vendor on the marketing side, and you had these great conversations. But Clubhouse is only as good as it is in the second. It's not recorded, it can't be shared. So I think that's kind of where Clubhouse has lost its steam. But what we wanted to do, we wanted to build this list of, these are our preferred partners. These are companies that we really believe in what they're doing, and we know that they're going to be helpful to anybody who is looking for help in any of the categories that they represent. This is a evolving list. That, I mean, the ones that are on the list are going to be on the list, but we have some companies that are not yet on there that we haven't had a chance to talk to, but we want to make sure that we are building this as a really cohesive and comprehensive list of the best and the brightest, and we will be calling on them to come back. Each company is going to have somebody that is joining our A team, and that is going to be ongoing conversations, webinars, online events, maybe more, where we bring them in and just really get to pick their brains. And a lot of these companies have been on the show previously, some have not, but they will be coming up soon. So we really try to choose companies that are bringing a lot to the space, a lot to the conversation. And we are very excited to tell you who is on the inaugural list. So without further ado, we'll just jump into it. So of course, AJL Atelier, Simon Lehmann, who is our partner for the first of the month bonus episode that you're listening to right now. AJL Atelier, that was one of the first ones that we contacted and said, we want you to be part of these discussions and part of the list with us. You want to just go every other one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So our actually, what's interesting is, as after Simon, we actually were approached by this next one, which again, they're game changer in the industry, and we love them, and they're really phenomenal. Minoan, and we just had Mark Kostovsky from Minoan on 2 weeks ago. And I think that, this just speaks to what we want this list to be. We want the people on the list to be cutting edge. We want them to be forward thinking. We want them to be collaborative. We want them to be wanting to have conversations on all sorts of levels. And so we're really thrilled. Minoan was the first one that sort of joined us, and they were just right there in front of the list, or front of the pack to jump on board with us, and saw that what we were trying to do had merit, and we're really excited to have them on.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure we gave them a shout out, and big shout out to Allie and Sage from their team. They've been exceptional to work with. And obviously we just love getting to know Mark on his episode. But other companies that we have on this inaugural first rollout of the list, we have Hostfully,
Got to Go,
Explory,
Journey,
Whimstay,
ICND,
Wheelhouse.
And Wheelhouse is actually going to be a brand sponsor of the show overall. So we're excited about that. And then we have HVMI,
which is Homes and Villas by Marriott.
Homes and Villas by Marriott International. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Marriott Homes and Villas. Better Talent,
Touch Stay,
Revan Research,
Guest Guide,
Point Central,
Transparent.
I can move my mouse here. Rent Responsibly,
DAC,
At Ease,
Travel Boom,
Lexicon,
Condo World,
of course, Shine Forth,
Be Home 247, and also Okay to Charge.
Yep. Flip To,
Stayfi,
and Employer Brand Central, which that is Amber Hurdle's consulting business. So these are our first picks, our first round through of companies that we know, respect, think that they bring a lot to the industry, and that they will bring a lot to you in the coming months in our episodes and discussions that we're going to be having going forward. So we are very appreciative of them, and just excited to continue moving this forward with everybody.
Yeah, and I think it bears repeating. We're starting our all-stars and our A-list, and I think that one of the things we wanted to do with this list was we had people approaching us that were starting out in the industry, or people that have been in the industry, and they were looking for advice. And this created a need to be able to consolidate some information, but we felt like we were in a position of trusted advisor, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing our due diligence with these organizations to make sure that what they were providing was the best and the brightest and cutting edge, and, you know, and really in tune with what the industry was. So again, the list will be a living, breathing document. We will add, delete as, you know, people come in and out. But we look forward to working with everybody and collaborating and creating educational opportunities. Nothing is set in stone at this point outside of the list that we're creating. So we're open to all kinds of opportunities to be able to be, again, collaborative with people in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we mentioned last month was, you know, since post-COVID, there's been so much new technology that's come into the space. And I know as somebody who's been in the industry for 13 years now, you know, there's a lot of vendors that they've been around all those 13 years and many more, but there's just a lot of brand new companies that are coming into the space, and it can be tough to decipher what new technology is worth bringing on, because at the end of the day, there's an operational tax of bringing on a new system. And if it doesn't enhance your profitability, as Simon's about to talk to us about, then it's not, it's probably not a journey that's worth taking. So these are companies that we feel like are very worth the journey. And we are excited to bring them on. And a lot of the reasons, as you mentioned, questions that we get from listeners asking about specifically on revenue management, marketing, operations, that's how this was built. And so, you know, using that basis of this is our knowledge base, we very much enjoy being able to do this and to provide this information to our listeners and just help the industry grow. And that helps all of us in our businesses.
Yeah. And I think the great thing again about this list is like, it was another aha moment for us.
Mm-hmm.
We had these people that were constantly asking us, and it was just like, wait a minute, why don't we just consolidate this together?
Yeah.
Can create something that we can help and serve up to people. So
yeah,
it's going to be really exciting to see where we can take it. I think it's got a lot of room to breathe. So
yeah. So super exciting. So stay tuned. There's a lot more to come with this, but another big announcement that we have, and then we'll get to Simon here soon, I promise. But another big announcement: Steve Malo and V-Trips and Matt Landau asked us to be the official podcast for the Home Runners event in Vegas. So that is on Sunday night of VRMA.
Yep.
And this is going to be at Caesars. They are doing we are hosting, I should say, a red carpet at the Home Runners premiere, which this is a TV series that Matt Landau has developed, and the first company that they profile is Steve and V-Trips, and we got a preview of the show. It's incredible.
Really good.
Talk about a look behind the curtain of Steve and the company, and just how much they've grown and really have grown a lot in the last year with a lot of the new talent that they've brought into the business. So that's going to be absolutely phenomenal. We'll be like Joan and Melissa there interviewing, and it's going to be fun. If nothing else, we know it'll be fun. So if you're at VRMA, please make sure it's a free event to go to. And I think it's open bar for the first hour or so and snacks. So make sure to come and see it. It's going to be an exciting night. And
make sure you get your tickets.
Yeah, get your tickets.
Get your tickets.
Yeah. And I think you can get your tickets when you register for the conference.
Online on Vermont.
Yeah, on the Vermont's website. Yeah.
Nice.
So very excited about that. Next up, so looking back on this past month, if you missed any episodes, please make sure to go back, listen to Mark Hostovsky from Minoan, the episode we just mentioned. That was a great one. We also had Corinne Oki from Breezeway, Matt Loney from Explori, predicting tech consolidations. That was an excellent episode. And of course, Andrew Kitchell with Wheelhouse, and just a great conversation about how Wheelhouse is really changing the game in revenue management, revenue performance, and putting you in the driver's seat of that important part of the business.
And one of the things I loved about Andrew's episode was it was actually one of those ones that really resonated more with people than we expected it would. And we talked to his very good friend, Dave from Rent Responsibly. And Dave said, I've known this guy since I was 19 and he's never told that story that way. He's like, the way you guys got him to talk about it, which I think just speaks to like what we're trying to do is we don't want to have the same old conversation with everybody. We don't want to just talk about the technology. We want to talk about the humans behind it. And he was so open to share kind of his path and his journey, and people really, really enjoyed it. So thank you for everybody that did listen. And, you know, all of the guests that we have, they give us little tidbits behind, like you said, you know, kind of with Steve's thing, a little behind the scenes look and glimpse and humanizes each one of them beyond their technology, which is just so rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So coming up this next month, we have none other than Terry White. Actually, well, that was yesterday. I'm sorry. That was yesterday,
Yeah.
August 31st. Be sure to go back and listen to that one. We also have Ben Coleman from Revan Research. And then we have Lance and Elaine Stitcher, our good friends,
Yeah.
and Andrew McConnell. So we've got a great month coming up. Super excited to continue these conversations, bring more of the A team in and our all-stars in, and just keep going on. So thank you everybody for your support. We are now going to turn over. We're going to welcome Simon to the mic. Here comes Simon for Simon Says.
Welcome back. We've got Simon on for this month's Simon Says. Simon, welcome back.
Thank you, Alex and Annie. It's great to be back as always.
We're so excited to have you back after being down under last month, and now you're back home and ready to bring us a super interesting topic on profitability.
Absolutely, yes. Travel was great. Experiencing a lot of different vacation rentals around the world, which was awesome. But it's great to be back in the European time zone before before the conference time starts again.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about profitability. That's something that you focus on very much at AJL when you're consulting with your clients. And we thought it would be timely in that there's a lot of people that have sold their businesses, bought businesses, starting businesses, but they need to understand what it means to be successful. And as you point out, being profitable is how you can be successful. So you've come up with a couple of the top 5 list of things that every property manager should know and focus on to be profitable. So why don't we get started with number 1?
Absolutely. So let me do one thing very quickly. We have talked about profitability since 2019, which was literally before COVID struck. And the reason why we did that was at the time when Vacasa raised enormous amount of capital for their businesses and still producing, not very good numbers, actually produce high losses. We were always said eventually profitability will haunt us, right? So we always said this is going to happen no matter when. At that time, a lot of venture capital came into the industry. People just wanted to see growth, but profitability didn't matter that much. I tell you now, none of the businesses out there are raising any capital if they're not profitable right now. So it has eventually gone full circles, and in 3 years and now when we speak to venture capital companies, and private equity only buy profitable businesses anyway, it has become very important. We consult a number of property managers who are now having to turn their business profitable to raise more capital because it just does not attract investors to invest in a business that has not a positive cash flow. So this is one of the background behind it. And you gave me 5 topics. I could have given you 20 in terms of focus points
right.
when we talk about profitability, but I try to sort of set my priorities right. So I think to start off with, it's actually an overarching piece, which I call strategy. You need to have a strategy. And that actually starts in to think about or give yourself an answer. Why are you in this business? What made you come in this business, and what you want to get out of that business? And for that, you need a clear strategy. So we've done online tutorial courses in hotel.school, which is the strategy workshop, where the first thing we talk about, hey, why you're in this? Is this for lifestyle? Is that for an eventual exit? Is it something you build for your kids that are going to take it over? What is the strategy, and why are you in property management and short-term rental? Is it just by accident and you just run a few property, or is there a real strategy behind it? I think that's, for me, absolutely a number 1 element, that profitability is part of your overall strategy on the business that you build as a foundation. That would be, for me, one of the most important.
Excellent point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously with the strategy goes many different questions. How many locations do you want to operate? Do you want to start urban? You go leisure? Are you in a seasonal market? Are you in a less seasonal market? Do you want to expand in 2 or 3 years? I think a 3 years horizon on a planning is something we should do. And of course, it has become very difficult for us to have any predictability in what we've been facing the last few years. But at the end of the day, you need a plan, and that plan needs to be more than 12 months and then measure against that. But I think that's part and parcel of a strategy as well.
I've got one question on that. So why is it that the private equity and the investment companies that came in around 2019, and then obviously with much more force going into COVID and post-COVID, why were they not looking at the profitability as much as they are now? Did they think that it was going to come around and that it was going to finally balance itself out? I mean, what has changed in terms of how investors are looking at our industry?
They want to hear more the truth. Not just kidding.
I mean, yes.
We want the honest answer.
So no, I mean, it's a great question, Alex, because at the end of the day, it's an educational process. So while VCs came into this industry, that was sort of powered by a very successful IPO of Airbnb. Let's not forget that, right?
Right.
And Airbnb was a big money funding machine that raised an enormous amount of capital until they turned into profitability. And they managed it because they built a consumer-facing brand, has different value behind it, and many other aspects of it. So I think, and yes, we're not Airbnb, we're property management companies, and we need to be mindful of that. But I think what has happened is that the investors have underestimated the challenge of our hyper-local and hyper-fragmented industry. And to build economies of scale in that at large has not materialized. So I'm not saying these companies have put business plans forward that were not profitable for the next 10 years. Of course, they've shown huge growth, and then eventually after 3-4 years, the growth will fund its business and therefore will turn cash flow positive. So of course, venture capital funders, companies, they more normally fund, growth companies that will eventually show profitability, but that's not the start off. So I think they put more money on the potential to scale this business to a very, very large for it to become very, very profitable eventually. And one thing was underestimated is the fragmentation, the unit densities to run operations in property management and many other aspects. And I think now, in the meantime, and I'm involved in a number of conversations when it goes about funding as well, the investors have learned a lot and are understanding what the risks are in investing into a fast growth business that eventually has to turn profitable as well.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome.
Stuff.
Well, let's hear number 2.
Yeah, I was debating to put that number 1, and it's actually equally important because it stems from it, but it's the human capital,
Absolutely.
Because when we just talked about investments here, right? And we talked a lot at the VRMA executive about the human capital and the importance of it, and I think human capital for me goes 1 and 1 in having a strategy, because you want to have the right people on the bus. I mean, my bookshelf over here in my office is full about leadership and managerial processes and decisions, and every leader or any manager will tell you what's the most important thing to your career and success is hiring the right people and focusing on the human capital, and that also goes with the founders, the management team. A lot of venture capital firms are I wouldn't put a percentage behind it, but a very large piece of it is actually the human capital they invest in and not the actual business, because they know if the business struggles, then they can do something else. And that has proven over and over. I've been invested in businesses during COVID that have had massive struggles, totally pivoted, went into something totally different because they used the spur of the moment and became super profitable. So the human capital is equally important from the management team, but also anything below. So it doesn't matter on what level you work at in a company. The highest portion of our operating cost is still human capital. So once we pay our homeowners and once we pay those OTAs commissions, what is left to us, our gross margin, most of that is either going to tech and to the human capital. And human capital, if you have a good culture in your business, that you're focusing on the well-being of your staff, on focusing on retention. We've seen it in COVID. Many companies who could not afford to keep their staff on or have not tried, so they've just got rid of everybody. Now they struggle to get human capital back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And others have actually said, hey, we're going to keep our troops. Maybe they earn less or whatever, and they're willing to sacrifice something, but they're all back. And that gives you a completely different basis in how you run your business. So I think the human capital, that train your people, elevate them, give them make them feel part of something and let them participate. This is something extremely important. And I think that's one of the key elements of being profitable and successful, is investing a good amount into your human capital. What people underestimate, if you say, well, I'm going to have very low salaries, and then your staff churn because they will jump because they get 5,000 somewhere else more a year or whatever, it costs you more to recruit, train, and onboard people. And that's in many cases so short-sighted. People push very high operational expenditures, want to pay low salary, but every staff churn is ultimately costing you more than having loyal and motivated people on your payroll.
Right. And really that comes down to,
go ahead. No.
I was going to say that it comes down to trust and making sure that your people do stay loyal to you and that you are upholding the vision and the culture of the organization. And one thing that we've really noticed recently at the events that we've gone to, there's been so much more of an emphasis on human capital, and not just because of course, everybody's having a hard time with hiring, but not just because of that. I've seen more companies like Robin Cragen and Moving Mountains and Matt Durrett and Cozy Vacation Rentals, and several that are similar to them, that are using EOS training, and they're using personality profiles to pick their key leadership people, and really putting a lot more emphasis on how they build their team than I've ever seen or that it's been talked about at these events. So I think you have something to do with that. I would say, I think that's definitely been something that's come about in the last year. We've really been pushing the human capital.
Yeah, it's a great point you raise. And there's a lot of different tools in how you can do it. You shouldn't over administrate it, because at the end of the day, it boils down to leadership, right? If you're a control freak as a company owner, you can't overcome that, right? So it's very challenging. That then leads into coaching and whatever. But if you can really build trust and have others deliver to your expectation and create a culture that is cohesive, you can do that with tools like Cultural Index, where you can measure the different type of people that need in a business, so they're working well together. There's many different ways that can be extremely effective. Absolutely. And obviously, Robin is a perfect example. I mean, he qualified to be one of the best employees in the United States. So, they have understood how to build a very strong culture. I think all their staff are hyper loyal. They have zero churn. Only somebody moves away from Steamboat.
We just had him on recently, and we found out all the reasons why. I mean, I can understand why he has that team. It's an incredible company.
Yeah, I have a question kind of related to like the upper level human capital, and I use this. I'm thinking of the announcement recently with Vacasa putting Rob Graber as the CEO, and I think that I know him from Expedia days. He was at Agencia. Met him maybe once or twice, but just saw him speak and saw him lead that team. And I think that, he comes from a travel pedigree. He's been around travel space for a long time. And so I think personally, it seems that maybe Vacasa made a mistake by bringing Matt Robertson, because he wasn't engaged in the industry. He was not coming from the industry. He didn't understand it. He was technologically minded to a degree, but needing to have somebody who can speak the language to the troops, so to speak, is really important. And I think some of these companies that get these big investments aren't necessarily looking for the right person to lead. They're just looking for a name and what they think that person brings to the table in terms of connections or visibility, and not really understanding the uniqueness of, again, vacation rentals is a very unique and complicated business. And if you don't have any insight on travel as a whole, I think it makes it very hard to gain the trust of your troops. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's a tough question. First of all, from where I see, Matt Roberts was not brought in as a long-term CEO, number one. Yeah. So I think we need to take that in equation. Maybe the change probably could have happened a bit earlier for the right reasons, but let's not forget they went through an IPO. You need somebody very experienced in that process. And then also, I guess his background from an open table definitely that didn't bring as many similarities as Rob's background out of the Agencia business from Expedia. But now it boils down to leadership, if you ask me, to be perfectly honest to you. While we're so heavy on human capital, which we just said, I mean, this is material in vacation rental industry. We're still very service heavy. We need top people to deal with guests and owners and all the challenges that we have in between. We're in a service business, and that requires a lot more experience from a travel industry aspect at large, and travel is all service. No matter what we do, airline, corporate travel, whatever, we still want to be able to serve our customers and have the right understanding on the importance of human capital and put that to work. So I think that change, I mean, I celebrate that change. I think it's a very smart move to have somebody like that, you know, coming from the kitchen of Dara, which I'm a big fan of anyway.
Yeah.
These people have made great experiences, work in very great management teams, and that culture was always celebrated very heavily in this organization. So I mean, at the end of the day, I can only hope that Rob has the ability to turn this ship into more quiet waters where the team can excel in what they're supposed to do, and put some, you know, get away from these rough waters and have them be successful. That's what I wish all of them to make that happen. And I think Rob has definitely the ingredients to make that happen. But now it depends how well does that go with the rest of the team as well. So
Right.
I'm sure we will see some additional changes, which always happen when a CEO comes in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to number 3.
Balanced approach, you know, so this is something I can talk about it for hours, because that's something I get forgetting. And let's remember, we talk about profitability, and I think one of the key ingredients to be profitable, and when I talk about profitability, I think one thing we haven't alluded to at the start of the conversation, this is not about, hey, we want to be profitable tomorrow and then in 6 months we're losing money again. When I talk about profitability, we talk about sustainable growth and sustainable profitability over time, which means we want to create positive cash flow across the entire year, especially if you're seasonal. That's where people have totally lost it with seasonal businesses, trust accounting, not even understanding how much cash do you have to employ your people, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll talk about this in a minute. So balanced approach for me is the absolute key element. That's why I put it at 3. So it's in the middle of the 5. And the balanced approach is, I believe very strongly, and we can argue this, and I know there's a lot of other people who don't see it that way. I argue that you want to have a balanced approach equally for the homeowner and for the guest, okay? Because one thing that makes our business unique is we deal with individual homeowners. We're not asset heavy businesses at large. More than 90% of businesses are still managing someone else's home. That's a customer, and the guest is a customer too. I know companies who don't care because they get bookings from the OTAs. They don't care who the customer is. They just make sure the homeowner is happy. And others are the opposite. You know, they're very, very guest focused, but don't worry about it too much on the supply side, which can then result in churn, lower margin, and whatever. And because the value contribution to your proposition should be seen as equal, coming from the guest and coming from the owner. So if you remember, our overall margin was massive under pressure in the United States. You know, we've seen different models of Casa Turnkey evolve. If you have like these 3 stages of business models: full service, high touch, lower margin, or lower touch, lower margin. And what happened, we've seen more and more margin compression happening. So what then happens is that all of a sudden we're like, okay, where do we get our margins from? If we can't take 40% or 30% from our homeowner anymore, where do we take it? Well, we also take it from the guest, upselling, having additional fees, you know, damage waiver fees, et cetera, booking fees. So it's become very challenging. And I think I always said at the time, this is a dangerous move. And is it sustainable over time? I'm not sure. Because my view was always, hey, this is not a low cost approach, right? So your ticket is $50, but you know, you pay for your luggage, you pay to go to the bathroom on the flight, you pay your food, pay this and that. And that's dangerous because the customer will not like it. And that's where they get the fees, because they can't get it from the owner anymore. And therefore, the balanced approach to understand, hey, how does my business model look like? How does my contribution look like? And how important are those customers? And that's what I love about vacation rental so much. We deal with 2 customers all the time. And I believe very strongly in the DNA, in your strategy that you run as a property management company, you should focus equally. Both of them are equally important to your business.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Like I remember times where I came into a property management company where the guys who were in charge of the owners defended any noise complaints forever to the sales guy. The sales guy says, I want to give a discount to my guest. So you know what we used to do? Very simple. As like have the homeowner guys work in sales for a week and the sales guy with the homeowners for a week. That will fix it quickly.
Right, absolutely. And I think one thing that we run into a lot is if there's a different fee that we want to add on, whether that is, or not necessarily we, but as a destination, if there's a dollar a night fee or a small tax or something like that, it sounds really easy from the outside for them to say to us, just add a dollar a night, just add it to the guest, have the guest pay
Right.
for it. And it's like, okay, but if we did that for all the things that come to us, I mean, that dollar a night is $1,000. I mean, it's the same cost as the reservation. So that's one thing that's just really kind of boggled my mind, is that you can't keep adding on all these things. I mean, eventually it's our margins are already low. You really have to be taking a look at all the different things and how they add up and how you're going to be able to recoup those costs from a different source.
Yeah, and this comes to the point that we've been preaching as well, Alex, is like, you know, when people ask me, what are we not good at in property management, vacation rental, I say we are not good at communicating our value proposition to homeowners. Homeowners totally underestimate what it means to run a property.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so what is number 4?
Well, it had to come, but it is coming, and it's technology, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, I was debating, should I put that above and say, no, actually human capital, it comes before tech. You know, having a balanced approach comes before tech. Why? Because depending what kind of approach you run, you potentially require different type of technology in the ways how you communicate with guests and owners. You know, do you have an owner portal? How much visibility you give? Do you give full transparency to your homeowners, so you show them all the accounts? And you know, this is what happened when we talked about this balanced approach. Now that a lot of property managers taking more margins from the guests, they don't want to show that to homeowners as well, because they don't want that. They don't want to have that commissioned also by the OTA. So I think technology is going to be absolute key. Yes, and we made this public. My interview in San Antonio with Matt Roberts raised a lot of questions for me to say, hey, we need 1.3 billion in revenue and we need technology and we become profitable. That statement I could not live with, because I don't see technology closing an operational deficiency as much as probably Vacasa needed at the time to turn a business into profitability. But having said that, it's equally important, because there's so many redundant processes with a business that technology can do more efficient and better. So we need to be smart in where do we deploy technology and where do we deploy human capital. The human capital needs to be deployed where it creates value to the guests and the homeowner. That's where human capital needs to be deployed. And the rest can be taken care of by technology. That's accounting, PMS, channel manager, revenue management. Revenue management in today's world can do a lot until you need human interaction with it. And home automation, you know, how much is now going into home automation? Does a property manager know what does a check-in and check-out actually cost to me? How do I offer a high-touch property business like a Robin Craig? And of course, he has to check in his people personally if they request that. But if they don't, there's an automatic door lock, so he can offer both, right? So he can apply the technology the way he wants to deploy it. And I think that's where technology is becoming extremely important to close some of these gaps that we've had to endure to margin compression and see how much efficiency we can create through technology at the right point. Human capital still going to be very important. I always said robots are far away from cleaning our homes, far away. I have a vacuum cleaner robot. I'm never going to give it back, but it's not going to do all the job, right? So we need to. So this is exactly what I mean. I need to deploy it where it actually makes sense, and where it doesn't make sense, we will use good human capital. So I think technology has a massive impact going forward on profitability. The biggest problem here for me, from when we talk to property managers, is first of all, they're overwhelmed by the offers that are out there, and secondly, most of them do not know what kind of technology they actually need to solve their challenges. So a lot of I have not met a single property manager, and I'm looking forward to meeting the person who has had the same PMS for the last 10 years. You know, selecting a PMS and being totally aware, because we just talked about strategies first, then we say, okay, what do we need? The human capital, We know what kind of service we want to deliver, what brand positioning we have. Then we choose our technology. Then we sit down and write down our specifications, say, this is what we need. This is what we want technology to take care of. Trust accounting is embedded. Channel managers are embedded, this and that and the other. So write down your specs, what is important to you, and then source that tool according to your needs. And I think that's something that technology is extremely important. It can be overrated because we're hospitality people, so we're not tech people. It can be overrated, and it's a big pain point to ourselves because we rather deal with fun stuff than technology. But I think that's, again, boils down to human capital. If you have the right guy who takes care of that for you, then it will do wonders for you, without a doubt.
Yeah. And just like you said on the human and capital part about the cost of hiring somebody and then having to replace them, how much that adds up if that's happening several times throughout the year. Same thing with choosing a new service or system and that not working well. We talked about the operational tax of bringing on a new platform. And if it doesn't work out, and it's happened to us many times, there is a big tax in a lot of cases, not only the time that you put into it, but if you had to pay upfront fees, then you get down the line and you figure out that it's just not a system that's going to work for your operation. So really knowing how to make those decisions up front so you avoid that, I think, is super important, especially with how many new types of offerings are coming into the market. Everything sounds like it's going to be the next game-changing thing for your business, but which ones really will be, what's really going to move the needle.
That's a great point you're raising there, Alex. And that also consists a little bit of benchmarking, go out and ask for references, speak to others. And you're so right. I mean, if you go, this year's exhibition hall in Vegas is probably not big enough to accommodate all the vendors who want to sell some stuff to the property managers. It's going to be overwhelming, and people just going to walk out and say, "Oh my God!" And then next year, it's probably only going to be half of the vendors there as well. Because
they consolidated or went out.
Right.
Exactly. Either went out or consolidated or whatever. So I think it helps property managers not to make knee-jerk decisions on tech. And plan this really well, and then sit on the right technology as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, going into our last point, what is number 5?
Number 5. I had 2 to choose from, but obviously I'm only allowed to go with one. But I can weave the other one sort of into it because it has to do with margin.
2 for 1.
So it's actually financial hygiene, right? So that's actually going full circle at the end of the day, right? So we would go full circle and say, hey, we have a strategy, we have the right people for it. We've decided to have a balanced approach between guests and owners. We use the right technology to address that. And now we need to understand our strategy in financial terms. Okay. So for me, financial hygiene means, I have total control over my balance sheets and P&L over the entire year and seasonality. I do not put my hands into trust accounting. I leave enough cash to go through the tough winters when I'm in the summer business, so I can pay my staff. I know what my cash flow is at all times. I want to produce positive cash flow. And positive cash flow means you always have a bit of cash in your wallet without the credit cards, without anything else that you have. So financial hygiene, the visibility for me is absolutely key element for you to become profitable. I would probably, I wouldn't want to say a percentage, but it will be overwhelming to see businesses out there that actually are not delivering positive cash flow and positive contributions on a full year's cycle, that are actually, people don't know actually, hey, I'm actually not profitable. I get my homeowners to finance my cash drains while I don't have bookings. So I think this is, and then what goes into the financial hygiene is planning, right? So build a budget, have a budget set for the next year, measure your performance against that budget. Have we spent higher costs here? What we assumed, have we got lower costs there? Can we make adjustments? So you do a budget, full planning, which is always 1 year rolling, and then you do a forecast against it. And a forecast, I would, depending on how big your company is, I would do a quarterly or half a year forecast, look at your numbers, how do they track against budget, and how do we think the year is going to end up? So we can make some decisions. So budgeting, forecasting, planning, and knowing what your cash flow is at all times, I think is absolute key element. And we put that under hygiene. And what does that have to do with the last portion I wanted to bring in is I need to know what my gross margin is. I need to understand with what do I make profitability. Am I doing it with cleaning? Is it actually the commission for the homeowner? Is it how does my profitability work? And in order to do that, you need some key performance indicators I find very important. Yes, the cash flow is the most important, without a doubt, but you need to have visibility. What is my customer acquisition cost? And then I said, if what I think is very important for sustainable growth and profitability is that you have a balanced mix in your distribution, because they impact, your business. How much of your business is coming direct bookings? What is coming from different channels? What is coming from different OTAs? I think that is absolutely fundamental, because that plays into your financial hygiene. Is what is my customer acquisition cost? What is my owner acquisition cost? I can tell you, most of the property managers that we have done work with, they have an understanding on what my property acquisition cost roughly is, but truly loaded, fully understood. How much does it cost me to get a new property on board? How much can it cost me to get a new guest on board? I think that number can improve itself quite substantially if we're honest to ourselves and know what the true cost is of these pieces in our balance sheet, P&L as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting that's a question I ask people when they come to channel management and they say, I want to add all these channels. And I ask them the question, well, how much of your business is direct? How much are you using channels? Do you know what it is to, your cost of acquisition? And they've never done the math. And they've been in business for 10 years and they've never looked at what it means to have a profitable booking strategy. It's just are they able to pay their bills? Are they able to do all these things? So I think you've laid out a really good sort of outline and roadmap for people if they want to start a business or if they're already been in business. These are really, I think, again, there's probably 20 things that they need to know, but you've given them 5 pieces of homework that they really need to drill into and understand to be profitable. All of these things have to be. These
things are not things that can just be checked off a list. I mean, these are fundamentals of a business that you have to understand how these things work simultaneously with each other and really have buy-in from your leadership team in order to make them perform the way that you've just described to us. So I think if someone's not doing all these things, but they're interested in doing them, you have to really put some thought into how you start implementing these types of strategies, which I'm sure, Simon, you would be happy to help people with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, but it's a great summary. And yeah, I really tried to pick some of the absolute top 5 keys. And if you have answers to those, you're already halfway towards profitability as well. And that's a great start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Well, thank you for being with us again on our September 1st, first of the month bonus episode. We will see you next month. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you so much for having us. Looking forward to our next session. Take care.